Okay, so this is the second video. This is basically going to be more about not just actually the kind of documents you're using, but like the overall message of the paper and basically the big picture. Because I know we've talked about a lot about dividing these things up and looking at specific body paragraphs, but I want to make sure that you understand, the overall message of the paper. Sorry, things are getting crazy. So what I did here was I wrote down the question that you are answering. Right? I'm gonna outline it for you. Here's the question. You always need to keep in mind. Let me move this out of the way. That's annoying. Although Massachusetts and Virginia were settled by people of English origin by 1700, the two regions had evolved into two distinct regions. You want to say like the two colonies, areas. That's fine. Whatever, doesn't make a difference. What accounts for these differences? That is the question that you are answering. And the year 1700, we're being a little bit less strict about that year because some of those maps you have and some of the documents you have are after 1700, and that's fine. But basically, the idea is that Massachusetts and Virginia are really different, although they are settled by mostly people from England. And that seems odd because English culture on a whole is fairly, although obviously not totally, homogenous, which means the same. However, if you look at Massachusetts in 1700 and you look at Virginia in 1700, the two places look super, super different. And you are going to be explaining why they look so different using a variety of different sources to communicate your argument. And we've broken down what these differences are in three sort of buckets or categories. The first is the motives of the people who go there. The reasons the colonies are settled in the first place make them extremely different. We'll get into that in more depth in a minute. The types of people who go there, because of the motives of the settlements, right, are very different. And because the people who are going to each place are different, reasons they're going are different, they also happen to have very fundamentally, actually, different cultural practices and values. And we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth. Third, and this is a result of two things. The economies that develop in Massachusetts, the kinds of ways that Massachusetts or other colonies in New England make money is very different than what's going on in places like Virginia, Louisiana, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. The colonies in the South make money in a very different way than the colonies in the North. That's for two reasons. One, it has to do, and I'm going to write this in here because this is kind of complicated, with the actual geography of each region. And this is something that is actually out of the settlers' hands, right? So maybe if people in Massachusetts had large tracts of land that was extremely fertile, had a longer growing season, right, then maybe you would see something more like, a plantation system. But they simply do not have that available to them. Winter, as we know in New England, is long. That's why so many people, when they decide to go to college, who live in New England, go someplace warm, right? I know Chris always complains about wanting to go someplace warm, but I really like having seasons. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. But my favorite season, just so you know, what's your favorite season? Do you have a favorite season? These are things that you should think about in life. Clearly, I don't think the settlers' favorite season was winter, because what are you doing in the winter in colonial Massachusetts? Like preparing for the harvest in the next, summer and spring and stuff. But in, places in the South, obviously you have a much longer growing season, and therefore, you have a very different economy that develops there. The second reason it's different is because of the motives and the types of people who go, right? So then you have motives plus types. And obviously there's a lot of overlap. Okay, so let's talk about what I mean when I say motives of the people who go. Okay, people going to Massachusetts. This is really important. I even saw honors kids making this mistake. People going to Massachusetts are separatists and Puritans looking to create an ideal Christian society. Okay, you know this. They are deeply religious Calvinists. They face persecution, scrutiny, problems in England. Separatists face so many problems that they go to the Netherlands to escape them. But the Netherlands is too tolerant, and they're worried that their children are going to lose their faith and their connection to their English values. So they leave the Netherlands and they go to Jamestown. They think they're going to Virginia. They're not going to Jamestown. However, they encounter a storm. This is a brief lecture, by the way. They then land in Plymouth. But they're going to escape what they believe is the corruption and antagonism of the Church of England, which is still very, very similar to the Catholic Church. It is different, okay? People in England are Catholic. People in England are Protestant, right? Calvinists are Protestant, but they are radical Calvinists. And they go to Massachusetts. Separatists go. They settle in 1620 in Plymouth. The Puritans go in 1630. They settle Boston. They're going to create an ideal Christian community that focuses on fairness, their Calvinist morals, values, and everything about their life is permeated, affected by their religious beliefs. So, documents you could use here, you must use the model of Christian charity. And here's why. The model of Christian charity is awesome. It's written in 1629 by John Winthrop, who becomes the future governor of Boston. He is the minister. He's instructing his congregation about the problems that they're going to face ahead. But I'm recording something. Can you come back in a second? Thank you. Okay. So when you guys see when you're looking at the model of Christian charity, you see a lot of the values that are going to permeate all aspects of Puritan life. Okay? So that is an important, necessary document to use. Okay. All right. So ultimately, Puritans are going to create an ideal Christian community that emphasizes fairness, not equality, by the way, fairness and community and togetherness. We're going to mourn together, suffer together, labor together. Okay. Virginia, on the other hand, is settled by primarily English men interested in profit. Now, to be clear, Puritans are also interested in making money, but that is not their primary reason, okay, in going. The people who were going to Jamestown in 1607, the people who were settling Virginia, are young men who are looking to make a lot of money very quickly, to enrich themselves, generally at the expense of others, okay? This is not a community that is bent on fairness. This is not a community that is interested in perpetuating Calvinist beliefs, because they're not Calvinists who are going. They're young, wealthy men, and then very, very poor men as well, who are looking to create a better life for themselves, but they're looking to get rich as quickly as possible. They're looking to enrich themselves at the expense of others. Okay. Documents that you must use for this would be Captain John Smith's History of Virginia. Okay, great. Then you have types of people. We've already kind of talked about the types of people who go, right? In Massachusetts, they are families, they are religious. In Virginia, primarily young men. Some are very rich, some are very poor. There's very little in between, few women. Initially, it's a very unstable community. Okay, this is focused on mostly everyone in Massachusetts tends to be, though not always, tends to be middle class, for lack of a better term. And their community, with the help of the Indians really, is stable. There's much more stability. Now, when you think about the people who are going to Massachusetts, these people are very religious. So all of their activities, all of their beliefs are bound up in this togetherness, this commitment to Calvinism. So when you look at the marriage ways of people of Massachusetts, marriage is extremely important as a way to maintain the bonds of togetherness and of community, but long term. Think about what he says in a model Christian charity. Let's mourn together, labor together, suffer together. These are like wedding vows, right? In sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, right? They're very similar. Whereas in Virginia, marriage is not about love. It's not about togetherness. It's about bringing families together. It's about connecting people through wealth. Massachusetts is about fairness. Virginia is about hierarchy and elitism and tradition, okay? So that is why the sports that are played in Virginia are very violent. And that's, sure, they're violent, but they're about recreating the traditions that exist in England of the very wealthy, whereas in Massachusetts, they develop games they develop games they develop games that emphasize, everyone's involved. There's no gambling, right? Because that's, wrong. But they're very different places because obviously the people who go there have very different values. But you need to be clear about what those values are. In Massachusetts is settled primarily by families looking to create an ideal Christian community that results in fairness, whereas in Virginia, it's settled primarily by very, very young men who are looking to enrich themselves at the expense of others, and they value things like hierarchy and elitism. Okay, finally, in Massachusetts, this is twofold here. The geography of Massachusetts results in a shorter growing season, which forces the settlers to work together in sharing resources and diversifying their economy, right? They develop, many more industries because they have to. You can't rely entirely on cash crops. Whereas in Virginia, so you've diversified. I spelled that wrong. Let's try again. Diversified economies. And in Virginia, you have a cash crop economy. By the way, both of these are serving England, right? It's mercantilism. But so you have fisheries, you have timber, you have subsistence farming. I just spelled subsistence wrong, by the way. Whereas in Virginia, you have indigo and you have cotton. Okay, let's take a break here. And what you want to argue in this body paragraph is that Massachusetts has a diversified economy, right? And that's the geography of the region. But you also have this emphasis on fairness and religion. Still, whereas in Virginia, you have an emphasis on profit and hierarchy, which is going to result in things like Bacon's Rebellion, right? That's when you're pitting the very, very rich against the not so poor, but still the poor. You have indentured servitude playing a major role in Virginia because you need a huge labor force to work these enormous plantations. Whereas in Massachusetts, you see much more togetherness because people have to work together because there's only so much land that they have. And you also have a real attempt by the government to control people's greed and avarice because ultimately they're trying to create an ideal Christian community. So whereas in, Massachusetts at the end of King Philip's War, Connecticut develops legislation, right, passes legislation that says don't try to hurt your neighbors and make a huge profit. Whereas in Virginia, you wouldn't see that, right? Okay. So I'm hoping that this overall is going to communicate to you what you need to do. That's the brightness, Ms. Basson. What you need to do. This is the big picture. But keep in mind, and you can scroll back through, Massachusetts settled by religious people. They bring their values with them. It's all about fairness, not equality, fairness, looking out for one another, being kind to one another. Whereas in Virginia, it's not that people are mean or cruel, or it's about profit above all else, and making sure that people know their place in the world of profit, okay? And they're both very successful. Please do not think that Virginia is not successful and Massachusetts is. It is not true. Virginia is the wealthiest colony, it's the most powerful colony before the start of the American Revolution. They make huge amounts of money. Most southern colonies are very, very wealthy because they're doing huge business. And New England colonies are also very, wealthy, but for a variety of different reasons. And we just kind of don't talk about the middle colonies because we don't live, in like New York or Maryland, even though they're doing stuff that's important too. Okay, so I'm hoping this helps. This is the longer video, so you can watch this first or second. And please know that if you have not watched these before you come meet with me, you will never know that when I was 19, I fell down the stairs, 4 stairs, and broke my foot, and I had to wear a cast for all of the month of July, which was then resulted in me not working in New York City as I wanted to as an intern, but at a camp as a music counselor, which was, as you can imagine, kind of a step down. So now you know that about me, and I can't think of anything other fun things. I also fell down the stairs when I was 5, and I had to go to the hospital, and that was kind of scary. And the fireman came. But you have to tell me that you know these things. That is the password. If you want to meet with me, you have to know that. Because otherwise I know that you didn't watch this video. Okay? Peace out, people.